Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti. I hope you have had a wonderful time in the last week, and I'm sure you are going to have even a wonderful time the coming week. Today, we are going to treat this moment between you and I as a moment in commentary on issues that have bedeviled the scene that we have in front of us. I don't think people are very happy with the way things are going on. And it's not only United States or India, but virtually all over the globe. Today, I'm going to discuss in 3 segments a commentary on the political state of affairs, followed by the role of technology that is impacting all of us rather bizarrely, very powerfully, and making an impact on every segment of our life: social, economic, politics, religion, and everything that we have. In the final segment, we will take up the role of religion, the way it is impacting us and creating a divide instead of bringing unity. So let's begin with the political dialogue as to what is happening around us in the world today. Looking at United States, our home country today, you are looking at a scenario of 800,000 people or so have been furloughed, they are not getting their salaries and benefits as we talk today. It is 26th or 27th or 28th or 29th day, it doesn't matter. The fact that government is facing a shutdown doesn't speak well for our democracies, our rule of law, and the way we lead our life. And we have a scenario in which the President and the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, both 70 plus years old, are behaving in a manner that doesn't inspire confidence. Now, who is at fault will depend upon who you believe in. But let's look at it from a dispassionate point of view as to why the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is such a belligerent mood to thwart President Trump in his agenda for immigration reform or protecting the southern borders. Now, $5 billion, the request for $5 billion for a congressional approval for building the fence or steel frames or the wall, depending on the requirement of the terrain, is not something that breaks the back of American economy. We are the largest economy in the world, over $20 trillion. And $5 billion is just peanut. We give 10 times or 12 times or 15 times more money in aids to countries so that they become better. And we don't have $5 billion to protect our own southern borders. That's a question that is up for debate. Now, whether it is immoral or whether it is unethical or it is not required is a question which can be debated much later. But the question is, can we make an effort to start taking care of the borders from where people are coming in, taking advantage of the lacunas in the immigration laws in terms of holding people back. Now, politics has become a kind of an invisible poison. It has become an invisible poison that destroys the atmosphere the moment the decision process gets into your head. We become the prisoners in a cell as to not being able to break through. Instead of making a breakthrough, we are indulging in a breakdown scenario where everybody is holding on to their own tiny fort, and I'm not going to budge. The compromise suffers, the welfare of the people suffers, and the bigger element is the trust in politicians, trust in the process, the trust in the system begins to get affected. Now, that's not good for the system. That's not good for the common man who believes that the process must work. If the process doesn't work, then you have chaos. And that's not what is the aim of the country like United States, which is a beacon of hope. Millions of people want to come here for a reason. Whether it is an American dream or their own dream, it doesn't matter. What important thing is that people want to come here because this is the country of opportunity where you can make a living and live happily. Now, the political leadership is really, really very sharply divided. Look at Britain. You had a Brexit decision. The whole plan for Brexit was defeated, but the Prime Minister survived the no confidence motion. So what's going to happen now? Everything is on a war footing. It's like firefighting, that in January 26th or so, she has to come back, Madam May has to come back with a plan to ensure that Brexit happens in an organized manner. Now, every country is in a turmoil right now in Europe. Who gains by that? The villains of peace get that advantage of that. People who want to cause disruption and chaos, they gain from that. It's very important to understand here that crisis all over and no solutions begins to impact all of us on a daily basis, because our moods get destroyed. Now, mood is a very important thing. It is always the belief and trust in the system. That's what we aspire to reach out to. That our aspirations are led by the political leadership. Now, the way they are conducting themselves at this point in time, whether it's Europe or India or United States, let's talk about these in a global frame of reference, because it is a concern that is really genuine. The political legacies are important. If we do not do that, then we have a problem. Very basic structure is being questioned. Now, that is very important to determine, that if we do not come to finding solutions to the crisis that we identify in our way of life, then we have a problem. Politicians are those group of people who are supposed to lead us into a surety, into an assurance that things will remain good. So whether it is a question of immigration reform, whether it is a question of economic revival, whether it is a question of taxation reforms, all these things get impacted adversely. And you and I become victim of that entire tragedy. So what is important here is to figure out, is the political system ready, or is it unable to deal with the speedy way in which technology is impacting the entire system? Are we in a bullock cart age? Are we in a bicycle age? Because if the systems are designed which are much slower to deal with issues, but technology is ramping up the speed so much that we do not know whether the political system is ready to catch up with the speed of change that is happening. And that's another issue that needs to be evaluated, because now, because of technology, we are now looking at a scenario that messaging is become very critical. If you are not able to convey your message in a manner that it must be given, then you have a problem. And that's what we are witnessing today, is that anything that happens is instantaneously a news around the world. Nothing happens in isolation. It happens in a conjunctivity of factors that impacts us one way or the other. We are now witnessing a politics of populism, fear-mongering, hate. These are becoming instruments of driving an argument. Everywhere that you see there, everything is being conveyed as a matter of fear, a matter of hate against one group or the other, and that uncertainty is affecting all of us in a very deep way. And we need to attend to that. As aware citizens, as conscious and aware participants in the process, we need to convey our point of view. The political system is designed to be slow. It's designed to be inefficient in the system of checks and balances. It is very important to figure out that who is eventually responsible. Where does the buck actually stop? Is it the Supreme Court? Is it the legislature? Is it the executive? We are now looking at a scenario in which there is an overlapping interventions happening. Everybody is rooting to their own little turf. And the turf war which is going on, which is very detrimental to the state of affairs. Look at India. Now, Mr. Modi has tried to do a real big change in the country. He has taken tough decisions. Look at the way he is being hammered by Mahagathbandhan and the opposition as if he is the most dishonest person on the planet Earth. At the same time, it's very fascinating to see that Mr. Modi is being recognized for his contributions. He recently received the Philip Kotler First International Award for political leadership. And what did we see? Rahul Gandhi making an immature statement that who knows about this award? Nobody knows about this award, and what basis was it to give him? Eventually, Professor Kotler himself, who is a management guru and whose books I have read and many management students have read, is a doyen of management. He installs an award and he gives it to Mr. Modi, and that becomes a subject matter of political footballing. Now that is very, very unfair. What I find is that unless and until people, you and I, who are participants, who are beneficiaries or victims of these manipulations or these kind of chicanery that goes on, we will suffer a lot. And that's the point which is important from the political angle. Now we are right now looking at technology. It is impacting us in a collective way, which is very, very, very important to understand. Through the WhatsApp group and through Twitter and through Facebook, people are able to reach out to segment of population around the world, which was not possible just a few years ago. So the question here is that how is our collective wit, our collective wisdom being impacted because of the slowness in the political process, which can't catch up with the change impact of technology that is bringing about us. Please stay tuned. We'll get back to you after this short break. Welcome back. Let's enter into the second dimension of our discussions today. And the point which I'm trying to make is about the impact of technology. Today, the computational power of this smartphones, thin-looking instruments, is so important that it has the ability to think quicker than us. The computational power that exists now, they can think faster than we do. We have all become data. And when we become a data, then data can be manipulated, it can be mapped, and fundamentally reshape the way we think and do things. This is where the concept of collective thinking becomes very important. When we become a data, we are no longer a social security number, but we are a mass data, and that data gets manipulated. We all know what is happening in the world of Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and Google. Now we know the story is going around the town right now, all over the world. Everything that goes on Facebook remains. Everything that you and I say today will remain there forever. The point is very important to note is that when we become a data, a part of a big data, we become manipulated. Our views are shaped. And that's the entire thing which has led to a belief that the power of politics or shaping the politics has shifted over to the mass or big technology companies. Now, let's take, we can take any number of examples, but think about it like this. This computer, this little tiny smartphone has altered our way of life. This is the place, this is the item which has more computational power than the space program which sent spaceships in the space. So think about it from that point of view. Our universe opens with this in the morning and it shuts down when we close it at night or whenever we choose to close it. It is important to be very aware that not everything on internet is true. Think about it. Google is the new guru. Anything that you want to know, anything you want to do, and if you don't know the answer for that, from the recipe of creme brulee or making butter paneer or making a bomb for that matter, you have that available on Google. There is nothing that is not available. Are we using that power of knowledge and information to the way we must, or we are becoming victims because they are tracking you? We all know that how the advertising game is being played, and we know that how the big data analytics impacts us one way or the other. As I was mentioning to you, the power of smartphones, it's so clashing with our values, the human capacity, or our need for moral challenge. It is becoming a game in which we are either a victim or a player. That's important to determine. Technology plays a key role. Many of us, we do not know the way we are being tracked. We do not know how to use certain technologies. There is an age gap. Older people are not so facile. They are living in their own world. The youngsters are in a totally different world right now. So you can think about it like this, that most introvert people that we knew one time, they are perhaps the most active one because of the sense of anonymity. So when Twitter, let's take example of Twitter, and 140 characters or 150 or 200 characters, we are able to make an editorial comment which reaches, depending on the size of following we have, or to whoever we wanted to do, we can convey the message to whoever we wanted. People have millions of followers, and when millions of followers listen to one point of view, they get manipulated or they become a victim. The question is, how do we manage that moral challenge within us? No political party, no ideology has the right to be the arbiter of morality. It is absolutely sad to see that many people attack people who support Trump or Modi or anybody else. So when you are attacked as an individual in a collective way, and that's what I was referring to, that collective will of people is being impacted when, say, for example, former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton called all Trump supporters as deplorables. And in many liberal programs, you see the direct attack made on anybody who is supporting Trump. That is very sad, because that begins to polarize people more than we ever thought would ever happen. So that's very important to see how technology is changing our lives, whether we like it or not. What is also very important to recognize, that technology has the biggest manifestation in wars. So think about it like this. When the atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was the first time we saw the impact of technology in terms of devastation caused. It also is important to know the rebuilding of Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened because technology allowed or enabled them to develop the destruction that happened in those countries. Now, important part here to remember is that in the war games, now if we have heard about the electronic magnetic waves. Now, electronic magnetic waves can destroy economies, and that's one of the biggest area of security concerns that you and I have. And that's where the US government is spending maximum money to ensure that our power grids, the water facilities, the nuclear installations, and many infrastructure elements are not derailed, devastated through an electronic magnetic attack that can be done, and cities and systems can be really suffer a catastrophic loss, and you and I can suffer a major scenario. How many of us remember that when there was a major power grid failure in Northeast a couple of years ago, the entire traffic in Long Island, at least that's where I was, didn't know what was happening. The traffic came to a snarling halt, and the chaos prevailing was absolutely sensational. So we have seen it in the movies, we have seen it in real life, and we have to be aware that technology's impact must not devastate us. We cannot allow our societies to become victims of terminators, 1, 2, or 3, whatever it might be. So the point which I have always been trying to raise is take the example of climate change for that matter. The research studies that have come about on climate change, there are both sides to the story. The researches are made to prove a point, and every segment of the technology forces us to rethink in terms of our own value systems. Where does technology seem to stop, and the human beings will not be able to absorb that anymore? A very interesting observation somebody made a few days ago. The new telephones that have come about, new smartphones that have come about, the sales of those instruments have not been as good as it was expected or anticipated. The reason is very simple. I realized myself that I need not have so much more capacity of taking a picture or using the options, and I don't need to pay $900 for a new instrument. I didn't buy. I'm happy with my Samsung 7 because I don't need 9, I don't need ultra pixels, because my capacity to design a photograph or take a picture is impacted because of my own ability or satisfaction with what we are doing. So at what point in time technology will make itself redundant? It's a question, food for thought. Talk about climate change. Think about how many researchers have gone about melting of glaciers, melting of rising sea levels, or global warming as it is being talked about. But there is another school of thought that says that these are all part of historical process. They will continue to happen, and human beings always adapt and adjust with the change that happens. 2019 and going forward, humanity and history has an opportunity to make major shifts. Whether that shift happens for the good or for the bad, we have no idea, but we have to work towards that to make sure that technology becomes an enabler, it is supportive, and is not manipulated by those vested interests to achieve a very specific goals. Stay tuned. We'll get back to you right after this short break. Welcome back. We discussed two issues arising on account of politics and what is happening due to the impact of technology. We also talked about how technology itself is becoming a monster, or some of us are unable to handle. Now there is a third element, which is my favorite topic about that, is religion. Now everywhere on the planet Earth, everywhere we find considerable religious tensions. My personal belief is, and I think I'm right about that, God did not create religion. People did. God created life, the life that manifests itself in you and I, whether you are practicing Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jewish faith, or whatever. Now the important part to realize is that in this God-created universe, if you don't believe in evolution, and those who believe in evolution, we all emerged. Our blood is red, our teeth is white, we see through our eyes, we hear from our ears, and every individual on this planet Earth does exactly the same thing. There is a universal principle of happiness and joy. There is a universal principle of sadness and death. We all die. And when the myocardial infarction hits us, we are dead. At the same time, in the creation part of it, or evolution part of it, think about it like this. Every single woman on this planet Earth takes 9 months to deliver a normal child. 9 months. No God, nobody's belief system led to changing or altering that process. Think about it. In the universal principles of joy and happiness, every parent wants that his child does well. Every universal concern or fear is that nothing bad must happen to our child, and that goes intergenerational. And this is global. We know now that miracles happen, but what we called miracle once was because science had not discovered the cause of that miracle. So let's, for example, think about it, that at one point in time, not too far away, that women were held responsible for the gender determination of the child. That's how women began to, kind of talk about my son, as if she was responsible for that. But science discovery led to a miraculous understanding that it is a man who is responsible for gender determination of child. That's not miracle. Birth of a child is not a miracle, it's a process. And the process is important to understand. Likewise, in the case of a religious strife, when God didn't say to anybody that you have to be Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jain, or Sikh, or Jew, or whatever. That's a manifestation of a man's creation. God said, hey, you want to pray to me? You go down on your knees. And we all do in our own ways. The Muslims go down on their knees in the mosque. Christians go down on their knees in the church. And we Hindus have a practice of Ardha Shashtang, Purna Shashtang, or just even saying, bowing to God with Namaste. There is a process. Again, this is a process. The Almighty installed a sense in all of us that we have to bow to somebody who is stronger than. Why is God stronger than all of us? How does it, did God ever say, did God ever claim that He is the strongest or weakest of all? Did He ever demand money for anything? But we the people do that. And we believe that my way is the only way. Here is my thought on that, is that if we put religion on a back seat and we begin to treat each other as humans with universal concerns and universal joys and happiness being similar, there will be an instant peace if we accept that. I have absolutely no problem to say this aspect, that if Christians believe Jesus is the only way, I'm very happy in that belief system. If you believe that Jesus is the only way, good for you. Go do the best as Jesus preached and practiced, for which He was crucified for whatever His preachings were. But today Jesus lives in many countries, more than 150 countries in the world. I'm fully okay with that, because I have no problem as a Hindu. If you believe in Jesus, go ahead, do that. If you believe Allah is supreme, so be it. But don't tell me that my practice is wrong. And that's what leads to clashes. When I believe that my way is the only way, why can't we just say, pray in any which way you want? Whether you want to pray or not doesn't matter. And there is a very important question which I asked of a friend of mine, and he is a Muslim. And I, as a conscious aware person, I asked him, I don't go to the temple 15 days at a stretch. But your guy prays 5 times a day and blows himself up in a jihadi cause, causes death and destruction of lives. But I am driving my truck, but I take the 15 people to the hospital. Who was Khuda ka banda at that point in time? Who performed God's role of helping somebody who needed help? I did. And that's what he said too, that you are the God's messenger to save lives. That's the important point for us to understand, that no way is right or wrong. Every way is right. But so long as we accept this premise that you be who you are. And I have often said this, that if God wanted me to be anything else than I am, who I am now, He could have done it. He's an ultimate magician and performer. If He had done that, I would be anything else. But it doesn't matter whether my name is Vibhuti, Victor, or Muhammad. It just doesn't matter. As people, as humans, we have an identical role on the planet Earth to take care of people, help the needy, and be good. Do our actions define who we are? It doesn't matter what I think of myself to be, but my actions determine my conduct and acceptance in the societies that we live in. So that's the important point for us, aware, educated people, to confirm with each other that no, everybody's way is the right way, so long as you don't tell the other person that his is the only right way. As I said earlier, miracles are the absence of science and discovery that happens in our life. Now the important part is, why do people fight in the name of religion? Why there was such a sad battle between crusaders and jihadis? It has gone on in Europe for donkey's years. The point of the matter remains is that, again, the political system uses fear as the process to scare us, that if we lose, we will be dominated by other faiths. That is the important part. The rule of law, the rule of nature is survival of the fittest, right? Now, survival of the fittest has a biological concept to that. But religion becomes a devastating impact in terms of fear factor, that my God is superior to somebody else's God. Now the point of the matter remains is that what is the theory of freedom of religion? How did this whole thing happen? Where did it all start? Why do we even address the question of freedom of religion? Why can't we all be who we are? Why does it have to be in a world where there are only 3 accepted religions in the world, like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and rest is Hindus are the way of life. And we are not, we are decried by others that we are idol worshippers, we are, we don't have a monotheistic God, but we also say there is the same God for everybody. But what we do is respect the nature. The Sanatan Dharma is about law of nature and acceptance of natural laws. What does natural law says? If God created this entire universe, then everything is a life force. So whether you pray to sun as a manifestation of God, because without sun's presence, we would be living in an ice age, frozen to death. Think about it like that. Sun is a form. And that's where the beauty of Hinduism, as I understand, comes out and inspires me. That if I'm inspired by sun, which is a source of energy for all of us, cutting across all religious barriers, if we are beneficiaries of God's creation of sun for our life-sustaining force, if I say, thank you, God, for giving me sun, and I see that form every morning, and I say, great, and I bow to him. Anything wrong in it? Likewise, water. How long can we survive without water? But it is such a wonderful thing to have. Our body is made up of water. So if we drink water and if we treat water as God's manifestation of life-sustaining force, anything wrong in it? It has a form, but it is a form of a different kind. Water assumes the form of whatever vessel it goes into. Likewise, air is invisible. That's why we say God's omnipresent and omniscient presence all over the world. But air is not visible. So in Hindu dharma, in Hindu practices, we pray to manifestations of God as expression of our own gratitude. There is nothing like a form. So you can worship air, a non-form, sun as a form, and a water as a liquid form in any which way you want. So that is the important part for every religion to understand, that it's not tolerance, the word, which is key to our survival. It is acceptance. And we must, as humans, learn to accept everybody as they are, not as they are like that, so they must be wrong. So, whatever we eat, whatever we consume, as the famous slogan in computers and technology says, garbage in, garbage out. So our bodies are also made up of what we eat, and that's what defines who we become physically and otherwise. So if we are, it's a very interesting thing. God created animals too. Every life on the planet Earth is created by God, if not of evolution, depending on your belief system. So it is every animal contributes to the ecological balance. Talk about climate change and nature's balance. Everything and everybody is food for something or somebody. So even when you bury the dead, in Hindu philosophy we do cremation. Western world has accepted cremation as another process. Maybe for economic reason, because burial and all the rituals related to that has become very expensive. If you want to bury your departed in an expensive, more beautiful cemetery, you pay much more money than otherwise. But remember one thing, when you bury the dead, the earthworms have their feed from the dead bodies. So remember that part. Everything and everybody is food for something or somebody. So the important part here to remember is, just as buffaloes are designed to be food for lions and tigers and whatever else, snakes eat rats, rats eat something else. It's an ecological process and an evolution. They don't kill for fun. And the moment humans decide to protect nature, the first thing of that protection of nature is treating animals with respect. And I'm a great believer in that. Is that animals, there's nothing wrong in vegetarian or non-vegetarian, doesn't matter, because everything is food for something or somebody at some point in time. We are far more evolved than animals, as a result of which we can add masalas and we can create a recipe for everything on the planet Earth. Animals and elephants don't. They just chew on what they can. So the point I'm trying to convey to you is that nature, if has to be protected, the climate change has to be protected, we need to change our eating habits. And there is a school of thought which is backed by scientific proof that the amount of water consumed for a pound of steak is so much that is leading to water shortage elsewhere. So if we began to change our food habits, maybe that will have an instant impact. But then again, politics and lobbying and vested interests go into play. Because if you change the food habits and consumption of meat products declines, it will lead to unemployment for many. Now that's the issue that we have to come to senses in a reasonable way. Continuing on the same thought, likewise, when people have faced considerable stress, when people try to convert one person to another faith, now that is definitely causing a lot of stress. India is a happy hunting ground and a victim of conversion philosophy of Christianity. Christian missionaries come to India and create stress that Jesus is the only way. If you convert, Jesus will take care of all your problems. Now, as I said earlier, if you are a believer in Jesus, good for you. Don't tell others to do that, because they were not designed to be what you are planning to make them to be. And that's a very, tension-producing, stress-producing item in societal ways, the way we live. And nobody likes, I wouldn't want my child tomorrow, if he goes on his will, free will, to become anything else, I have no problem. Even if he doesn't pray, I have no problem, because he's my child. That's the universality that we need to do. We have to accept everybody as we are. As it is famous in our custom, Namaste is a sign, is an expression of the fact that as manifestation of God, you and I are just equals. If we are all equals, why do we fight over religion? Friends, it has been a pleasure to share my thoughts on these subject matter. Of course, it's not perfect and it's not complete, because this is a process of a continuing dialogue, frankly speaking. And that's how I would end this day today, wishing you a very conscious, aware moment in your life, to be aware of your surroundings, acceptance of people as they are, and let's spread the word. Why not? I mean, what distinguishes a Muslim boy, a Hindu boy, or a Christian boy or girl in a manner? No, nothing. Just because we pray, we do this, or we do this. Doesn't matter. But it's all paying respect and accept everybody else as they are. Thank you very much for being with us today. Have a great weekend, and catch up with you next week with another very important discussion we will have with you. Thank you.